The government formally bans the Hong Kong National Party. An escalation in the trade war between the US and China. And in the Maldives, the opposition candidate claims victory in presidential election.
Hello and a very good evening. The Hong Kong National Party, which advocates Hong Kong independence, was officially banned by the government today. The decision to outlaw the group on grounds of national security was gazetted this morning. Pinky Wong with our top story.
Andy Chan's Hong Kong National Party is now an unlawful group. Secretary for Security John Lee outlined the reasons for the government's decision.
I cannot ignore the fact that the Hong Kong National Party has repeatedly advocated that he will use all methods, including the use of force. I make the decision myself. Any other things are not taken into consideration.
The decision was gazetted this morning and posted outside the party's Tuen Mun office. Under the City Society's ordinance, the security chief can ban a group in the interest of national security, public order, or the protection of the rights and freedoms of others. John Lee explained that the 2-year-old group had executed action plans towards making Hong Kong a republic.
The Hong Kong National Party also spreads hatred and discrimination against mainlanders in Hong Kong.
Other acts, he said, include the convener's attempt to run for a legislative council seat in order to gain resources and overseas support, infiltrating the youngsters by running a so-called political enlightenment scheme for secondary students, setting up booths on the streets to raise funds and recruit members, and speaking at international forums. Andy Chan has yet to comment on the ban against his group. Mainland officials said they have zero tolerance for any organization or activity related to Hong Kong independence. So did the pro-establishment camp in the city.
We have to bear in mind that one country, two systems is not a place for advocating something like independence or total self-determination.
Pan-Democrats think the government's move is creating political fear.
We are worried indeed.
The CE say, or the Central People Government say, this is the red line because Hong Kong advocating for Hong Kong independence is a red line. We don't know whether the red line will move.
The Hong Kong National Party has 30 days to file an appeal. The idea of banning the group surfaced 2 months ago. It has since pushed localist Andy Chan into the spotlight.
If Hong Kong were to become true
last month, his speech at the Foreign Correspondents' Club was also deemed to be crossing the red line on China's sovereignty. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
With the Hong Kong National Party now deemed unlawful, those who wish to be associated with it will face legal consequences. It might be the end for the Hong Kong National Party, but far from over for those linked to it. Like Triad's unlawful societies are also subject to harsh penalties. Under the society's ordinance, anyone who claims to be an office bearer, manages or assists an unlawful society faces 3 years in prison and a fine of $100,000. Office bearers of a prohibited society could also be banned from taking up the same role in any other society for 5 years. Claiming to be a member or even attending a meeting is an offence that carries a penalty of 12 months in jail and a fine of $20,000. Those who knowingly let such groups occupy their site faces legal trouble too, up to 2 years behind bars. Here are other reasons of concern.
Support include monetary support, as well as human resources support or technology support. So any kind of support, if they are helping the growth of the pro-independence political party, this conduct, once again, Pro-Independence Act is against the Basic Law, which is a clear-cut issue.
Asked if sharing materials of the Hong Kong National Party online will be seen as aiding the group, Another Basic Law Committee member, Maria Tam, said that also depends on the person's criminal intent.
Well, in view of yesterday's ticketing chaos at the Express Rail Link's West Kowloon station, more ticketing counters were set up today to help passengers. Kena Chu has this update on the high-speed rail service a day after it went into operation.
Buckets were placed around the West Kowloon terminus of the Express Rail Link earlier today. This as water leaked at the ticketing hall and the restaurant area this morning when the amber rainstorm warning signal was in force.
We identified a very few and isolated locations with minor water leakages, and our engineers are following up on that.
He reassured the leakages would not affect the station's operation or structural integrity. To address the ticketing chaos travelers faced yesterday, 2 extra mainland ticketing counters were set up to enable those who've booked train tickets through China Railway's website to collect their tickets sooner. Yesterday, trains were also plagued by a number of issues such as minor delays and hiccups in power supply.
The first is due to the inclement weather that experienced between the Guangzhou South Station and Humen Station. Also a power instability incident that we encountered in the morning.
Even so, many travelers still have not been put off. According to the MTR Corporation, 76,000 travelers were received yesterday alone. On top of that, 350,000 tickets have been sold as well so far. This mainlander working in Hong Kong visits Guangzhou twice a week. Despite the higher ticket price when compared with other means of public transport, he said he would take the high-speed train for the speed it offers. Many others are also taking the train today to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival on the mainland. Officials said services will continue to improve in the days to come. Kena Chu, TVB News.
Outside of Hong Kong, the United States and China have imposed fresh tariffs on each other's goods in an escalating trade war that is threatening the stability of the global economic order. Washington says it's prepared to slap duties on all of its Chinese imports, but Beijing wants to restart negotiations, possibly because it has run out of US goods to tax. Jeff Tang reports.
The explosive game of economic brinkmanship between China and the United States just went up another notch today. A 10% tax on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods came into effect at around midday. The levy will be expanded to 25% starting January 1st, 2019. That brought the amount of Chinese goods hit by US duties to more than $250 billion, roughly half of all Chinese exports to the US. The latest round has instantly made widely used Chinese goods more expensive to American consumers. They include vacuum cleaners, banknote dispensers, photocopiers, as well as a host of computer equipment such as modems, routers, memory modules, and automatic data processors. Beijing struck back immediately with 5 to 10% duties on $60 billion in American goods. That brought the total amount of American products taxed by Beijing to $110 billion, or nearly everything China buys from the US. American goods targeted by Beijing in this round include liquefied natural gas and certain types of aircraft. Shortly after the duties came into effect, Beijing accused Washington of engaging in trade bullyism by intimidating other countries to submit to its will. While US President Donald Trump says he will not hesitate to eventually tax all Chinese imports, Beijing has already run out of American products to slack duties on. That's why Beijing says it is willing to restart trade negotiations if the talks are based on mutual respect and equality, according to a white paper published by the State Council. But Beijing reportedly pulled the plug on a meeting in Washington between Vice Premier Liu He and the US trade delegation, citing insincerity from the US side. Senior White House officials say Washington is prepared to keep up the conflict until Chinese firms stop what it calls the theft of American intellectual property. Beijing has long denied the accusation. Meanwhile, a US analyst says Washington will not achieve the results it wants by escalating the trade war.
I can look back when this happened again under President Bush Jr., they applied about 30% tariffs on steel, and they had to take it back after a year because it actually cost more jobs in the United States. So this is obviously by far more serious. Unfortunately, it is going to get worse before it gets better, but there's a good level of optimism here because there's a meeting between the two leaders in November at G20. Hopefully there's going to be something that will come out of that.
Jeff Tang, TVB News.
Turning to the Maldives and the Indian Ocean, opposition candidate Ibrahim Mohamed Soleh has claimed a surprise victory in yesterday's presidential election, upsetting incumbent Abdullah Yameen. The results could mean a different political path for the island nation. Peter Caveos has details.
Sounds of celebrations from the streets of Male. Supporters of Ibrahim Mohamed Soleh danced in the capital after he claimed victory in the presidential election. Provisional figures from the Elections Commission show him leading by a 16% margin, with about 90% of the votes counted. He said this was a momentous occasion for the island nation.
This is a moment of happiness. This is a moment of hope. This is a moment of history. For many of us, this has been a difficult journey. A journey that has led to a prison cell or years in exile. It's been a journey that led to a complete politicization and breakdown of public institutions. But it's been a journey that has ended at the ballot box because the people willed it.
His victory was definitely unexpected. The opposition feared the election would be rigged for President Yameen. There was even a raid on the main opposition campaign office a day before the election. Yameen's first term in power was marked by a crackdown on political rivals, the courts, and the media. Exiled former leader Mohamed Nasheed watched the results from Sri Lanka and hopes this signals change.
We want to see a smooth transition. We do not want to see President Yameen back to his old tricks. No more Supreme Courts, no more martial law, no more emergency rule, no more suppression. We will hopefully again build a beautiful country.
Yameen went on state TV to concede and said he knows it's time to step down. The leadership change could also signal a shift for the country politically. Yameen's administration embraced China, which has backed his infrastructure drive and prompted concern in the West about Beijing's increasing it.
Iran has declared a national day of mourning following Saturday's attack on a military parade. The violence left 25 people dead, including 12 members of the elite Revolutionary Guards. Thousands of mourners packed the streets of Ahvaz in southwestern part of the country. Public offices, banks, schools and universities in the province will remain closed today. On Saturday, 4 assailants fired on a viewing stand where Iranian officials gathered to watch an annual parade marking the anniversary of the start of the 1980 to 1988 Iran-Iraq War. Iran blames the attack on Saturday on US and its Gulf allies, but the accusation was dismissed by US Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, who said Tehran should look closer to home. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said President Donald Trump is open to talks with his Iranian counterpart, Hassan Rouhani. Britain's opposition Labour Party will reportedly vote this week to keep a second Brexit referendum on the table. That's if Prime Minister Theresa May fails to pass her EU divorce deal through Parliament. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn had earlier said he would back a second Brexit referendum if his party voted to pursue the move. Corbyn also said he preferred a new election to a new referendum on Brexit. That highlights his reluctance to back growing demands for a people's vote on Britain's decision to quit the EU, out of fears that he could lose the support of party members who had voted to leave. Negotiations for Brexit, scheduled for March next year, are more uncertain than ever after May's plans were resoundingly rebuffed by the EU last Thursday. And still ahead on the news tonight. Mid-Autumn Festival celebrations around town. Hearings in a judge-led probe into the Hong Kong MTR station scandal get underway. And Barcelona honours its patron saint.
Welcome to our lounge. Enjoy your stay.
Thanks very much.
Find calm in over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
Welcome back to TVB News. Look out for free lantern carnivals today in celebration of the Mid-Autumn Festival. We now bring you live pictures of Victoria Park in Causeway Bay, one of 3 venues for large-scale performances and Chinese folk crafts. So let's take a look. The Urban Mid-Autumn Lantern Carnival kicks off in about 15 minutes and various lantern installations there, as you can see. Visitors will also get to see a fire dragon performance tonight. People of Taihang started it in the 19th century to stop a run of bad luck. And the Mid-Autumn Festival is traditionally celebrated by lighting lanterns and feasting on mooncakes, pastry filled with lotus seed paste. And besides Victoria Park, at least 9 other public parks will extend the opening hours today, and MTR trains will run overnight except for those on the Disneyland Resort Line and the Airport Express.
In other local news, a judge-led panel commissioned by Chief Executive Carrie Lam to look into subpar works at the Hong Kong MTR station held its first hearing today. Sharon Tang has more details.
Lawyers representing different parties arrived at the Tsuen Wan Law Courts building. Chaired by retired High Court Judge Michael Hartman, the commission was tasked to examine various construction works at an extension under the Sha Tin 2 Central Link project. It noted that it had earlier issued letters to the parties involved, such as the MTR Corporation, main contractor Leighton Asia, and subcontractor Fangsheng, requesting their cooperation. The group also included the Development Bureau and Highways Department. It has also instructed 2 British expert witnesses to provide opinions on structural safety and integrity issues. Hearings in English will be held every weekday from October 22nd until the end of December. According to the Commission, another contractor, China Technology, will speak at the hearing. The entire investigation was prompted by allegations made by China Technology over safety conditions at the Hung Hom station. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
2 days before a public consultation on land supply ends, a government-appointed task force submitted its preliminary observations to the chief executive. Summing up the more than 180 public events, the group's chairman, Stanley Wong, noted there is no single option to resolve Hong Kong's land shortage problem. Of the 18 options listed, developing brownfield sites and private farmland in the new territories seem to have wider public support. Also in the report, a positive response on developing the East Lantau metropolis by reclaiming land.
Hong Kong is mourning one of its brightest and most respected scholars. Nobel Prize winner and former Chinese University Vice-Chancellor Charles Kao passed away yesterday at the age of 84. Kao suffered from Alzheimer's disease after retiring from the university. With heavy hearts, CU academics and alumni paid their tributes to the pioneer in fibre optic communications. Kao gained international recognition with his 2009 Nobel Prize in Physics, but he's remembered locally for contributions in higher education. The Chinese university has set up a condolence corner on campus, which will last for an entire month.
The man running a 3D printed guns company is back in the US after being arrested in Taiwan. Police say Cody Wilson fled the country after learning he was being investigated for allegedly having sex with an underage girl. The 30-year-old was booked in a Houston jail and was being held on $150,000 bond. He was arrested Friday at a hotel in Taipei. He is facing sexual assault charges in America. Authorities claim he met a girl online and had sex with her at a hotel. He allegedly paid her $500. Wilson made headlines for starting a company that provides online designs for untraceable 3D printed guns. Experts say 3D guns are just a modern way of legally assembling a firearm at home without serial numbers. And that's the news.
A very good Mid-Autumn Festival.